Welcome, Jill, Karina, Taylor, Alexandra. Welcome, everybody. I am really ecstatic to be here today. I want to start off by just sharing this really interesting story that is related to what we're going to talk about today, which is time. So I called a tow truck about 2 hours ago because I was in Austin for a bunch of weeks doing an amazing gathering with Dreamporting Beauties. And let me see here. I just want to make a little change here. 1 second. Okay. And so I was away for a couple of weeks, and the battery on my car and my friend's car both died. So this is just like a reminder that time can impact things. It can have an impression on things. If I hadn't been gone for 3 weeks, I'm sure that my batteries wouldn't be dead. And the other ironic thing is that I called the tow truck a bunch of hours ago, feeling that it was an adequate amount of time before they would arrive to help me before I was going to join everybody today. And they haven't come yet. And I feel that I love this exercise in life because I think the tendency for control would have had me act in a million ways. I have to cancel the class. It's going to happen at exactly the same time. I should this, I should that. And this whole universe of stories of what's going to happen would arrive. And in divine alignment, I have decided that I will remain inside of my own deep awareness that we don't know. The tow truck could be on 10 more calls before he comes here, and he may not be here till this afternoon. And I know that as much as I know that he could come at the same time as this call. And so I just wanted to kind of open with this because the irony of the relationship that we cultivate with time has come from a societal norm. It's come from this system that we've created inside of reality to align. It's only that, though. This is a really grounding way that I choose to relate to time. I do believe that time and aligning with people inside of time can be a huge gesture of respect, because I believe that the way people choose to spend their time is one of the most valuable things that we have inside of this life experience. And so I do like that tool for that reason. But when I came to Earth after my accident, you kind of get like a basic breakdown of things that living on Earth is like. Okay, people say that they're going to be at the same time at the same place, and generally people like to do this, and you get some basic frameworks. They don't really tell you things about like lying and like some of those other things. Those are things you kind of have to learn the hard way. But time is something that they kind of, it's like as if you were getting a pilot's license to come to the Earth, and they're like, okay, when you need to see somebody, you have to arrange it inside of time. And you're like, I don't understand. And you're like, you'll get it when you get there. So I think that should be the only way to create a relationship with time, is how can I use it to my benefit as a gesture of respect and to align within this beautiful game that we play and maximize an opportunity. And I think with that lightness, you are releasing a myriad of things that wants to be created about time. So I know in a lot of spiritual talks, people are generally introduced to the idea that time is not real. And I don't like presenting this in that way, because it has a very disassociative quality about it. Like, oh, it's not real, so I'm going to reject it. And I don't want to have that relationship with time. I want to encourage people to create a relationship with time that you are its sculptor. You are the being who is at the helm of sculpting time. And why is that? Indeed, we live inside of only the present moment. And this is very important because there's a lot of really juicy and delicious divine beauty that arrives when you cultivate a practice inside of the present moment. And I'm going to come back to what those things are. But primarily, the reason why I don't want people to dismiss time as being not real is when you start to cultivate a relationship with it and you start to realize that we only are inside of the present moment, but you also in simultaneity hold the idea that everything that ever exists or ever will exist on all timelines exists. Then you are going from the present moment, this very micro focused, instantaneous, fleeting divine gesture, and also realizing that the all is the all. And why do I like this so much? The reason why I like this so much is in the place that my consciousness is choosing to be in this one and only present moment. I actually like to realize in the Akashic field, in the ether, in the quantum field, that everything exists. And so I always wonder, well, what can I create inside of this knowing? There's a lot of times that I've had really massive breakthroughs in my life. And the instant that I received the breakthrough, and I'm experiencing it, I try to connect with any and all Alanas that have ever existed in any and all timelines and give that energy to her. So let's say I have this really liberating moment where I'm in a moment of joy. I've healed something that had been blocking me for most of my life. I take this kind of harvest of what I'm experiencing. And not only do I recognize this me that's here looking through those eyes, I think about a 10-year-old me. I think about a 100-year-old me. I think about a me inside of another dimension on another planet as an extraterrestrial creature. I just feel where this emanation energy can reach to. And I issue it like a reminder. This is what I now know. And when you do that, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Tenet, but in that movie, they're doing these really wild circular timelines where the past is sending these clues to the past so that they will create what they want to be living inside in the future. So they're kind of doing this very cyclical backwards and forwards at the same time. And this is a real practice. Everything that we are experiencing inside of consciousness is getting accumulated into the quantum field, not only just for us as an individual, but for all beings inside of consciousness, because we are connected. And especially through this soul thread that we occupy, this soul that we have chosen to be, who has gone through karmic cycle over cycle over cycle over cycle and had transmutations that are affecting us today in this lifetime. As much as all of those progressions can arrive forward to change our experience now, we can also attune to pushing all of the discoveries, all of the gifts, all of the transmutations to that person that arrived at creating us now. Now, why would we do this? You wonder. Well, I know some of you have been to some retreats with Daniel, or some of you have been to a virtual retreat. A lot of the time we are doing quantum time timeline jumping in those retreats. And it is where we are snipping a timeline where we continue to occupy our life with a stagnant energy or a suffering or a trauma that's been affecting us for a long time. And we halt it, we clear it, and we splice in a completely new trajectory after that. When you are gifting your experiences backwards to yourself in any way that you can connect to it, don't get too much in your head like, oh, I can't feel or connect to it. It's a very etheric feeling. It's a very just deepening of your heart feeling when you're building that connection. And what you'll find is when you have this action and practices of gifting backwards, the beauty that you are discovering, the realizations about yourself, the things that you love to create, a love that you witnessed in another person or with another person, when you're taking those things and you're gifting them back, you will then be reaping the benefits of those transmutations. It's like it never happened in a way. In the place that it's affecting you, it's as though it never happened. So you'll find that a lot of things can happen a lot quicker because your soul on any and all timelines that you're connecting it to is receiving the benefit of the work that you are doing now. So I know that's really complicated and can feel a little heady in a lot of ways, but I think to simplify and kind of summarize what the gesture is, when something really tasty happens, when you're in a powerful moment, don't allow yourself to collapse into that moment as being fleeting or momentary. Just kind of bask in it and allow that basking to be emanating further and further and further and further. I love this question that Alexandra's pulling up right now. So Alexandra asks, we learn lessons from traumatic events. If we erase them, what happens with the lessons that we learned? Powerful question. And this is often something that comes, let's say the reason why this question is so powerful and why it exists is because in the physical dimension, there's this idea of permanence. If I have a car, I'll always have a car. You know, if I don't have that car, how am I going to get around? Right? There's a lot of very like permanent ideas. So the lesson has been learned. You said we learned a lesson. By removing the trauma from the part that affects us, we are not erasing the lesson. And the reason why that is because if we go back to where we started in the beginning, only the present moment exists. So there's an idea that's being presented here that my trauma has given me a lesson, has given me an awareness, and that I have evolved from it. But if you really start to do what I'm going to introduce at the end of this practice, where you are really dancing in the juicy and small moment that the present moment is, you can't even be thinking about the trauma or the lesson that you experience. You can only be being. And so this is an important relationship to cultivate because these layers, I am my traumas, I am my lessons, I am my suffering, I am my identity. These are the programs of samsara. And when we start to create a space between us and these stories, we are starting to create the deepest realization. And the only one that matters is that we are the infinite divine. We are pure love. And we are free, and we are rapture, and we are joy, and we are ecstasy, and we are play, and we are generosity, and we are magic. And that's the reason why, as much as we have grown in our personal awareness through our traumas and through our experiences, it's important not to dwell inside of them as they can become the things that confine us. So I really appreciate this question. I think that a good point of reference that I like to use about these types of experiences is my experience, traumatic, positive, destructive, expansive, whatever it was. The story generally breaks down to always be the same. I am being shown what I am not to help me remember what I am. And that is the core of a traumatic experience. Inside of the traumatic moment, you are being shown something that you are not. And the degree of the trauma is the degree to which you do not agree to that experience. I do not agree to violence. I do not agree to oppression. I do not agree to manipulation. Anytime that we experience those things and we have a traumatic response, it is a part of the divine remembering. I am not a violent person. I am not a manipulative person. And we know this because we have experienced that dissonance, that separation that caused us to have that traumatic feeling. So again, it's just all about building relationships with the circumstance, building relationship inside of time, and building this relationship with ourself, which is the one and only relationship that truly exists, as everybody inside of consciousness is our mirror, reminding us of who we are, what we are vibrating and emanating into the field, because it's our unique coded experience that we've come here to do. And it's all about mining the opportunities inside of this experience as this one consciousness that I am right now. What is it that this version of the divine wants to create anyway? Maybe it's painting, maybe it's delicious food, maybe it's powerful relationships, maybe it's expanding wisdom. The focus of our attention towards the I am consciousness, the I am that I am divine, and I want to make blue candy with in the shape of octopuses. I mean, creation is pure creativity. So yeah. So let's get back into the time moment. I hope that touched on to what you're asking. I'm really grateful for bringing up that question, because I hope it's bringing more lightness as well as sovereignty to relating to trauma. It really is about the relationships that we use. We become a victim inside of our trauma if we choose to be, or we become more self-aware, more in evolution. It's all about a decision of how we're choosing to relate to the experience. And obviously that also can be inside of what our capacity is in the present moment. So, so psychological time. I talked about this reference time. I'm going to meet you at the store at 5 o'clock. This is just a simple convenience. And I like to just also remind people that it's kind of a guessing game. You know, I'm going to say I'll meet you at 4 o'clock. And this is with the assumptions that my car's going to have a battery that works and my wheels are going to roll and I'm not going to get stuck in traffic. And, you know, like the list statistically is infinite. It would be in the billions of things that we're leaning against to kind of assume something's going to happen at a moment. So I think cultivating lightness and realization that there's more, quantitatively, there is an astronomical amount of things that we can't control versus what we can. So have lightness about this agreed thing, just use it to our benefit, but don't cripple yourself inside of it. And I think that that's where a huge majority of suffering comes from. I love this simple thing that I taught this business team a couple years back. I was in New York. I was at this really rad advertising agency. I was making commercials with them, and I was always getting hired for these impossible projects where there was no time and there was no money. And they did it because somehow miraculously I was always able to pull the project off. And the first meeting that I had about this really insane project, I they were like, okay, we're going to put an hour aside for the meeting. And I simply said to them, if you put an hour aside for the meeting, we will fill it. I can just tell you that. For some reason, if you define that it's going to take an hour for us to do the breakdown about the thing, it's going to take an hour. So I was like, can I just propose that we like say, these are the things we need to cover. We need to cover this, 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 and this. And this is what's going to occur inside the meeting. And we have no idea how much time it's going to take. And they agreed, because part of my appeal was that I always did things a little differently than other people. And so we sat down to do the meeting, and I looked at the different group members. I looked at the production crew. I looked at the prop crew. I looked at the logistics crew. And I was like, you guys are going to break apart, work on this, 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 this. And every group was done in 15 minutes. And I was like, great, everybody give me your summary and let's go to lunch. And it was over. It was a 15-minute meeting, because it was about what it was that we were trying to create. It wasn't about consuming all the time that it needed to accomplish something. So this is where I'd like people to rethink their relationship about this psychological idea of time. How have I been going about relating to time? How have I just re-examine from scratch, instead of using societal norms to kind of work through your day? Like, I came home with this battery thing happening. I had this laundry list 10 miles long of things that I needed to accomplish today. And everything in my surroundings is telling me it's not now. It's not now. It's not now. It's not now. And oftentimes when I get the it's not now about something, and I have lightness and I'm not grasping like, oh my gosh, though, but I have to da 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 da. Something else shifts. The universe comes in and does their job. Like, they'll have a big discovery, like, actually, we needed to move that thing all together. So now we have an extra 2 weeks. There's other things that our higher self and our soul are working on outside of our awareness, in concert with the reason why my car isn't going anywhere today. I just wasn't supposed to go anywhere today. And I received that. And I am so grateful, because I needed a break. And I'm sure there's going to be another piece that comes into my awareness in whatever amount of time to be like, no, this is the reason why you didn't go anywhere today. And so it's all starts inside of ourselves, because this is a set of practices, and it's a practices of relating. How am I relating to my world, my experiences, my obligations, my responsibilities? Am I being realistic, whatever that means? Am I being reasonable? Am I being, all those ideas are in a type of arrogance, in a way that we have control here in the conscious small me, but we have way more control in the big me, our soul me. And so it's about cultivating that relationship of trust. Okay, I'm not going to be in frenzy about fixing my car. I already called the tow truck. They're going to come whenever they're going to come. And I might go somewhere today and I might not. And something magnificent is still going to happen. And I can guarantee that when you are in lightness, in tranquility and ease, your life is just going to get better, because you're tuning your vibration to that, hey, I never have to worry. If I can't make it to where I'm going, something's going to help figure that out. And then your vibration is, everything is amazing all the time. And then that's the field that you're creating inside of your reality. Things come up in dissonance to kind of stress that a little bit. Okay, how much strain is going to keep her inside of this lightness? And then when does she break? And I love that game, because I just laugh all the time. Something will come up, airplanes not taking off. It's just like, I laugh at myself, because I'm like, okay, universe, like at this point, I know I'm going to live a rapturous life and I'm going to be okay 99.99999% of the time. So if you're testing my trust in your divine, we're going to be here for a long time. And that's definitely where I felt all the rewards showing up, because the divine was like, oh, we don't have to worry about her. She knows we always got her back. And I'll feel that constantly, and sometimes in completely absurd things, like all the things aren't going my way. And then I meet the one person that I needed to meet to get the most incredible opportunity of my life. Like it's really always about that. It's about, can I keep my vibration high, even though X, Y, and Z ain't working out? I can. Something even better. Always the way. So I talked about cyclical time. I'm touching a little bit into this concept that I was going to share, where when we're reflecting on how we're going to do stuff, when we're reflecting on our past experiences, we're creating stagnant energy. It's almost like you're making the engine go backwards. The universe is trying to evolve you and your experiences forward to have more joy, more bliss, more creation, more discovery, more play. And that's a really kind of positive energy. And the engine going backwards for the, oh, but this happened last time I did that. Pure guessing game when people do that. Last time I went to the whatever, this, and this happened. The likelihood of any two of those parts being the same and having the same results, completely buffoonery. But we do that habit a lot. A lot of people like to use this logic tool to structure their lives, and it's just this negative energy, this reverse engine. I'm not using the terms positive and negative with like a good or bad connotation. I'm just using them in their polarity. So important to remember that if you guys ever hear me use those terms, I'm speaking in a neutral way, because negative energy can be really positive depending on the circumstance. In this case, the engine going backwards obviously isn't going to increase our evolution. So how do we create generative energy? How do we create positive momentum that's allowing for this time to work in our benefit? And I say that curiosity is the way. Instead of saying, could this happen? Would this happen? Is this going to happen? You'd be like, what if that happens? What could happen? Where could this go? Creating that curious positivity is like you're playing a game with manifestation. You're like introducing ideas to the universe, and the universe is listening, like, okay, she was more joyful about the fact that she might be having to travel a lot for her work, but she was a little bit less joyful when it came to staying in crappy hotels. Like, it's like the universe is eavesdropping on our creativity. Like, okay, so this is going to have a really beautiful high results manifestation with something that she's really wanting. That was only like a 1 on the scale, so maybe we're not going to do it that way. So when you're having that conversation with yourself, with your life, with the universe, you're using that childlike wonder and curiosity to inspire things to manifest. And obviously you can evolve that into a really profound manifestation practice where you're just getting real precise and you're sitting and attuning your joy and imbibing your joy into a 10-mile long list breakdown of exactly what you want. And I definitely encourage that. And this practice is also going to augment the manifestation, because when you're starting with that tranquility in the present moment, which is what we're going to do at the conclusion of today's talk, you're kind of creating a still point. I like to call it the void. And inside of the void is the energy of pure potential. So when we're really kind of slowing down and getting into the calmness of the present moment, we are creating a void, because there's none of that drag on us that I'm talking about from this reverse engine that's stuck in logic and the past experiences. That is a consumption of energy. We don't even need to be transitioning into the manifestation positive energy quite yet. Hanging out in the void and just listening to the peace that exists inside of there is one of the most profound things that we can do. Essentially, it is what's happening inside of really beautiful meditation, is we are just simply listening to the sound of creation creating itself. And to be a witness to that experience is an honor to what this creation is. Creation came into consciousness to be witnessed. Otherwise, it would just be infinite creation that could never see itself. So when you take that time and you're attuning in the present moment, you are simply witnessing creation and having no hand in it. You are just observing. And when you really own that and you really lock that in a cellular way, you're saying that this is mine, this is my birthright, this is me, and this is who I am. And when you start from that, you aren't accumulating any karma, trauma, any of that. You are being sovereign from it and being in the pure potential that is our natural state. So that's why meditation is so magic. So I want to talk about the present moment. I said I was going to come back to it because there's a lot of things that cannot exist inside of the present moment. And I remember this moment. I was driving on the East Coast. I had decided to wrap up my whole life in New York City and hit the road and live in this camper trailer and hide in the back of a forest for a bunch of years. And at the start of this trip, I was listening to one of my favorite teachers, Krishnamurti, on the drive. And he has this really beautiful talk, and it's called Fear, the Most Precious Jewel. And I was listening to this talk, and inside of this talk, he absolutely takes you on a journey to attune to the present moment. Because when you go from a mind state that is trying to be in tomorrow or yesterday or the time that something else happens, you get attuned to the present moment, and fear does not exist inside of the present moment because it's this state of deep listening. And oftentimes when I'm working with somebody who is in a deep state of trauma, I will get to a point where I will just simply start reciting now, 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 because that is everything that we're able to do. One moment. Hi. So that would have been even more powerful if I was like leaving you guys to experience the present moment when I took that moment, when I was just one moment behind. So inside of the now moment, this is all that we can do. And when you're really deeply listening to how safe it feels inside that moment and how protected you are, and how comfortable it is, and how nothing can happen. We don't need to have any control there. We just are being, and we are inside that lightness of just being. This is where you can attune yourself to the deepest joy that you can experience. Because when you start to take that out of something that you need to go looking for, okay, I'm going to slow myself down so much that I can hear the present moment. When you start exercising into always being inside only that present moment, you are carrying that peace and that lightness with you in everything that you do. And you'll notice that your mind gets really quiet. It kind of starts to burn itself out, like, oh, I'm just doing that guessing game again. Well, that's fun. Like, okay, I'm just like prophesizing about something that I might know 1% about. Well, that's fun. oh, I'm stuck in this negative thought pattern about this thing that's already done already. Why am I choosing to do it again? Like, it just gets really playful because you're attuning to the being in that present moment. So, as the mystery of time is choosing to be, it looks like we are going to be wrapping up our call a little bit early today. So I'm just going to do a little introduction into this present moment in our meditation. And I'm just going to cut our call off because I'd like to leave you all inside of that, however long you choose to be. I suppose I would like to know if anybody has any other questions before we move into that, because I know we covered a lot today and I really playfully kind of jumped through a lot of it, but it all comes back to the, yes, Krishnamurti. So Taylor's asking about the fear is the most precious jewel. So it's K, like Krishna, Krisha, Krishnamurti, Murti. Really powerful teacher. Yeah, probably my number one teacher of all time in my experience. But essentially, in this story that I was telling you about, where I was listening to his talk about fear as a precious jewel, I feel like I blew up into the present moment because the idea of anything else existing just couldn't be anymore. So I recommend his talk. I feel like he has a really beautiful way of sharing it and building a relationship with fear, which is something I think we're going to be going into in a few other talks, because fearlessness is like one of my primary codes that I teach, freedom from fear, because it's just a waste of time. So yeah, is there any other questions before we go into a little present moment? I love you all so much. Thank you to everybody who's got their camera on today and shining their beautiful faces. It really fills my heart to know that you all are here. And just like seeing the ways that the energy moves amongst us is really beautiful, because I have a very sensitive field. So when I feel you squishing around the clay with the time and all the other things that we cover, it really blesses my heart. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's just take a deep breath. During this practice, if any ideas in any direction that something is a yes or a no, just say thank you to whatever wants to come through and release it. Because anything that wants to tell you that you need to be anywhere outside of the present moment, just ask it thank you and farewell. You're getting attuned into your natural state. So just go ahead and close your eyes. Use those delicious exhales to just release anything that's not serving you right now. Just release all those thoughts, ideas, things from the past, anything that wants to take away from this beautiful moment. We're just gonna try and shorten our idea of who and what we are into just this moment. And if you need help attuning to that, just follow your breath. And as you're following your breath, you can even start to break it down into little pieces. Instead of it just being one inhale or one exhale, how many times can I catch breath, 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 breath? Where can I put my attention? For how briefly? And as you're listening to these moments, you might notice yourself listening to these moments. How much space can you create between this voice that is you listening to the moments and you. And then realize that the divine is listening to you, listening to the moments. And that divine energy is showering you with all the safety, all the beauty, all the majesty, all of the joy. And it's trying to imbibe that infinite moment into your attention. And anything that arises to tell you otherwise is just interrupting an infinite field that is showering itself through you, with you, and around you. So I want you to keep listening to this ocean and notice what you hear and what wants to be here with you just now, and now, and now. And in this moment and all the moments that you choose to stay here.